This is Bethel's Bridge on the Driffield Navigation. It is the first on our holiday, where we'll be visiting new waters and the highest canal aqueduct in the world. So join us as we pass through the canals of England and Wales. We are soon through our first lock, which takes us onto the tidal river Hull, and then we can reach the Humber. When we reach Ticton, we find that the Hull Bridge Boating Club are going on their bridge protest cruise. This is to ensure that the Hull City Council continue to operate the lift bridges that they are responsible for. At Grove Hill we find ourselves at the Beverley Shipyard, now long gone, but there's still boat work going on here. The larger boats of the Hull Bridge Boat Club had to wait for Wheelbridge to be lifted. However, as a narrow boat we're much smaller, so we managed to squeeze underneath. The Sea King helicopters were still operating out of Leconfield at that time, and this one is returning back to base. We passed through the bridges of Hull while monitoring BTS. We were waiting for the weather information broadcast, which happens every 2 hours.
Thank you very much. 4 points to be having up. Sol ships, this is BTS Humber with the main broadcast for 1503. With the visibility report, north 2 to 3. Visibility. Wind like variable. Inshore waters forecast for wind to the wash. Southerly becoming variable 3. Rain becoming mainly fair and mainly good. Pilot's information at support side ladder for outward bound vessels. Slow down, 5 miles an hour!
Gary the Joker and his wife Jenny came down to see us off on our holiday. When we reached the Humber at Havsamis Point, 2 tugs and a coast agreed to this. Dad decided on caution and we held back into the River Holt entrance. We watched them go by and followed them through. The 2 tugs were going into Albert Dock. What we hadn't realised, and we can only assume because of their transit, we had a bit of a surprise. We were watching the tugs manoeuvre while they were waiting to get into the dock, and all of a sudden we drifted for a short while. The tide was pushing us at 4 miles an hour up the river.
Stephen, jam the tiller, the rudder. Have you got an axe? Yeah, we've got a hack, might need it as well. Oh, what are you going to do? Are you
We called for assistance and shortly one of the tugs broke off as they could see that we were in trouble.
I'll put him on the belt.
Shruvik probably had one of its easiest jobs of its life, towing us back to Hull Pier. We managed 4 miles an hour against the 4 mile an hour flow. It's probably the fastest the boat's ever been through water. The speedboat that was running trips from there graciously moved to let us alongside.
Tiller and everything else, I thought, you know, it's going to be a hell of a job, but I don't think it's going to be that bad.
As high water was rapidly approaching, we got to removing the obstruction. When the waves from this Icelandic Coast Guard vessel reached us, we still had the weed hatch off, and it was an interesting sight watching the water come up the square hole. Unfortunately I didn't film it, which is a shame because it was something you don't see every day.
That, are they gone then?
Tugs, yeah.
Gotta show him it, it's still around. Oh.
The tide was filling up the river, there was more and more traffic about, and we had a long way to go, so we really had to crack on to try and get up the River Trent as far as we could on this tide. As high tide approached, some larger vessels were now moving. They have to get out of the shallow Humber before the tide turns, trapping them in. It means they go very fast, and I've found that the best way to cope with the large waves that they create is to slow right down so that you're not smashing into them. starting to run out of tide and it was getting late, so this barge at Skidby was ideally placed for us. A new dawn, a new day and a new tide. This is Keighley Bridge, more formerly known as King George V Bridge. It was opened in 1916 and its unique design included both road and rail on a lifting bridge. It was last lifted in 1956. It has been now fixed in position. We pass the River Idle and West Ockworth Lock at some pace, making best use of the tidal current. All the old warehouses at Gainsborough have now been converted into flats, and this bridge here represents the start of British Waterways or Canal and River Trust waters. Cromwell Lock lifts us off the tidal waters and we continue up the river trying to catch up our lost day. Home Pier Point near Nottingham is the last of the big locks we have to navigate, but we've still got many more locks and some of them are still quite large. Meadow Lane Lock lifts us onto the Nottingham Canal and into Nottingham we go. Nottingham was hugely important for transshipping goods onto larger vessels. There are many warehouses, the former Fellows Morton and Clayton warehouse, and most notable of all is the Trent Navigation warehouse, which was later taken over by British Waterways. It's not too far to the Trent and Mersey Canal, and eventually we start to slow down a little bit more, enjoying the sights. Here is the aqueduct on the River Dove, which used to be a popular swimming hole until access was reduced. There are 76 locks on the Trent Mersey. We'll be doing most of them as we head towards Middlewich. It was opened in 1977 and helped provide the backbone for the Industrial Revolution. Subsidence was a large problem in this area near Rugeley, and it altered the level of the land quite considerably. In fact, Armitage Tunnel here was opened out completely after the collapse. Great Haywood, we continued up the Trent and Mersey towards Stone. We reached the halfway point on the canal just before Stone. This is no coincidence, as the canal had its headquarters there and was where the first meeting of the Trent and Mersey Canal Company was held in the Crown Inn in 1766.